Right, good morning. It's good to be here with you again. I got to tell you, I've had a morning already. Get into the office today, and tried to get the computer fired up, and the desktop computer didn't want to get moving. Once I finally got it moving, it's not wanting to connect to the internet. So I have been scrambling here for the last few minutes to get this going. But I'm glad to be with you this morning on our weekday wisdom in our series here, One-Liners from the Apostle Paul. And this one might be a little bit longer. Maybe we wouldn't call it a one-liner, but I sure am thankful for this verse. Where we're going to be today is 2 Timothy chapter 2. And verse number 3 says, "Thou therefore endure hardness." Endure hardness. The rest of that verse is, "as a good soldier of Jesus Christ." I want you to think today about just the hard aspects of life. Relationships can be kind of difficult. We face hardness or difficulty oftentimes, finances. Sometimes health issues will come into our life and bring a hardness, bring a difficult circumstance into our life. Our walk with the Lord and the spiritual battle. Those in our church, we spoke on this last Sunday and about being committed to the battle. We got to recognize we are in a spiritual warfare, and the real question there is, are we going to be committed to fight in that warfare? And so, the Christian life, nobody ever promised that it would be easy. I think I was speaking with my daughter about this just this last week and said, life, we live in a sin-cursed world. And Jesus, who is always right, was absolutely correct when he said that as long as we're in this world, we're going to have trouble. We're going to have trial. We're going to have hardness. Now, this verse that says, endure hardness, that actually is one word in the Greek. That's one word that just speaks to undergoing suffering, going through difficulty, and it's just, again, talking about the reality of how we face life. So endure hardness, undergo suffering, undergo the difficulties of life, the financial difficulties, the physical difficulties, the relationship difficulties, the spiritual difficulties of seeking to grow in grace and grow closer to the image of Jesus Christ. So what does that look like for us? That's what this second half of this verse is painting. We all have to do that. There just simply is no question. Hardness is going to come into our life. We have to undergo hardness. We have to go through that hardness. But how are we as Christians supposed to do it? What's the picture? And the picture that is painted here is as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Many of you know that I like history. I in particular like history that revolves around World War II. I just believe it was a fascinating time in our nation's history, and just a fascinating call to arms and people gathering together, men that were just lining up, ready to go to war. And there are some rather notable characters from World War II. Perhaps the most famous would be Audie Murphy, still today, one of the most decorated soldiers in American history. His exploits, they were ones of, movie exploits. A movie was made chronicling some of the time that he spent in the military, but one that's maybe a little bit less well known is actually an individual who was awarded the very first Medal of Honor in World War II. His name was Chief Finn. He was a Navy chief stationed at Pearl Harbor, On December 7th, 1941, he lived about a mile off of that base when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. And he woke up that morning to the sound of gunfire. His neighbor had come over and alerted him that they wanted him to get onto the base. And so he rushed to the base. And when he shows up at the base, he finds his men scrambling to fight back as these Japanese Zeros are attacking the base. He goes to one man who was a painter. I mean, just somebody in his unit who painted and who had a 50 caliber machine gun and was trying to shoot these planes down. And Chief Finn said, I think I can probably do a better job with the machine gun than the painter. So he grabbed that machine gun, he mounted it onto a movable platform and pushed it out into the wide open area. Now you'd say that makes no sense, putting yourself right out there, but it was the best visibility that he had of the enemy. For 2 hours, Chief Finn fought these Japanese planes as they're flying over, oftentimes targeting him. After 2 hours and the attack was over, Chief Finn had 21 wounds. You want to talk about enduring some hardness. He went and got medical attention and then came back the same day to help arm the planes that had not been destroyed so that they could go up and go fight. This verse says, endure hardness, how? As a good soldier. I think Chief Finn is a pretty good modern day picture of what a good soldier looks like. It is someone who doesn't collapse under the hardness of the day. It's somebody that keeps on going in spite of the hardness. I'm reminded of what Paul said to the Corinthians in 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and verse 58. Be ye steadfast, unmovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord. Whether you're going through hardness, whether maybe today doesn't bring the hardness of life or the difficulty of life. And as just a final note, coming up on time, as just a final note, please remember, we don't endure the hardness of the day. Whatever hardness you're going to face today, we don't endure that in our own strength. We can only be a good soldier of Jesus Christ by submitting ourselves over to the power and the strength of God Almighty. Be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. So I don't know what you're going to face today. Maybe today you don't face hardship, but it's coming. Let's do it as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Let's not be like the Israelite army that was facing Goliath and David walked out and they're all just hiding. Let's be good soldiers of Jesus Christ today. Trust that's an encouragement for you. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless. Have a wonderful day.